as the matter don't tough, and as the matter don't reach, we made to understand that Eudochie now run to his mother for help. He now runs kitty kitty, and he now runs kata kata to go and meet his own mama, so that his mama can help him, because Eudochie mama, we hear say for more than 40 years, the mother was practicing and doing his job until she finally retires, guys. Okay, in case if you don't know. So now, the suitcase where Eudochie live for house, they say he hold a lot of evidence. So now, Eudochie, he go run go meet his mama now for his mother to advise him what to do as a lawyer against May and Eudochie's lawyer. No, against May and his representatives, his lawyer. The matter he don't tough. I go allow now make May, one of his lawyer, educate those Nigerian people who don't understand the implication of what Judy Austin and is doing, because some of them don't understand it, and I want people to understand. Okay, so now I want make una sit down feke, listen to this lawyer. But before you go, una good morning, afternoon, and evening. Welcome back to Angela Gisme TV. If you never subscribe, quickly subscribe. If you don't subscribe already, I say thank you. Keep on sharing our video. They like our video. Okay, guys. Follow us on Facebook page, Angela Gisme TV. Thank you for those of now we don't put in for membership. God go bless you now. Thank you for your love and support. As now they support me, God go bless you now. But there's something I want to say. For those of now we don't know the implication of what Judy equates to the gold digger do, because some of us see they support you, they go to the gold digger. That means you people, you don't understand the implication of what she did or what both of them did. Just listen, guys.
Of the marriage law in Nigeria, I've asked myself, what could be responsible for this lack of knowledge or lack of adequate information on how the marriage law works? I have tried to explain that, and I think it has to do with the fact that for many people, they understand marriage from very different angles. For instance, some understand marriage from the natural perspective of the attraction of the opposites, man and woman coming together, forming a union, and that biological necessity of man and woman living together. Some people understand it that way, and they focus on what it will take them to be a good partner, you know, to satisfy the needs of the other person, to keep the opposite party happy. That's the in a sustained manner in a relationship, in a marriage. Some understand marriage from the biblical account, from their religious understanding of man and woman. For Christians, people see it from the position of the Bible, and they try to explain marriage in the context of what God put together. They believe it is God driving their marriage, and that is the God force that determines their marriage, and they approach it from the biblical account. And yet, there is a third angle from which some of us must see marriages, and that is the angle of the law. What do you think created marriage? I'm sure many of you, if I ask you what created marriage, you will go to your religious beliefs. But the fact is that marriage is created by law. It is the law that establishes marriage. It is the law that determines who can marry whom, the conditions and circumstances under which you could marry. It is the law that determines what marriage is valid and what marriage is not valid. It is the law that determines the consequences of a valid marriage and the consequences of void marriages or voidable marriages. So many people are bound to misunderstand marriage. Highly intelligent people, highly mature people, you will think these are knowledgeable people, but they still don't understand what marriage is about. I realized this because a basic post I made yesterday, or maybe earlier this morning, in which I tried to explain that polygamy, even though allowed in Nigeria, is not an absolute thing. It's not an absolute permission for every husband to go and get a second wife. Indeed, only certain men who qualify for a second wife can have a second wife. And this is done by the choice of marriage type you make at the beginning. The first time you get married, you have a decision to make. You have a choice. And the choice could be to marry under the customs or to marry under the statute. That is under the Marriage Act. there is a consequence, a fundamental consequence to that choice when you make it. Okay, I give you an example. Two brothers, brother A and brother B, they both want to marry. Brother A marries under the customs. Did not marry under the act. He marries under the customs. And brother B marries under the act. Because both of them are married, both of them are living with their wives, and everything seems okay. But these two men stand in different positions before the law. Brother A, who married under the customs, may want to have a second wife. If he decides to do so, it is between him and his wife. The law allows him to do so because he married under the customs. However, brother B, who married under the act, cannot have a second wife. It's against the law for him to have a second wife. And if we interpret our law strictly, it's actually an offense for which he could go to jail. He can't have a second wife. That is what many people don't know. So brother B may look at his brother A and say, come on, my brother could have a second, third wife. Why can't I have a second wife? And he begins to quote his customs and his traditions. And he begins to quote his forefathers. Oh, our forefathers married so many people. I can now marry. They will even quote the Bible that Solomon married so many wives. All those things you do or quote are wrong. It is an offense. It is not allowed by law to have a second wife if your first marriage was done under the Marriage Act. So it's a choice. You got to make that choice, and once you make that choice, you stick to it. You cannot change course midway. Absolutely. Because people will say, hey, I chose to be monogamous, to have one wife before, but I now changed my mind. I want to have a second wife. It's not true. It's not true. You have to stick to whatever option you maintain at the beginning. It doesn't mean that when you marry under the act, you cannot divorce. You can divorce, you can dissolve that marriage and marry someone else. What the act says is that you can't marry both of them at the same time. You can't have two wives.
That's good.
The penalty for it is 2 years.
Oh.
It's unfortunate that in Nigeria they don't enforce that law, but I can tell you one thing today. If a police commissioner decides to charge you to court for bigamy, you will go to prison. The judge will put you in prison because the law is very clear. The fact that they don't put people in prison for that now doesn't mean they cannot put you in prison. They may put you in prison, especially if you have been annoying the police. For instance, I am a Kubwe who've been criticizing the police in Nigeria. If I were to go and if I were married under the act and I get a second wife, Nigerian police will prosecute me and put me in prison. Then you will know that the law exists. So get that clear, okay? So now, women, having explained this to you, you know the implications. If you want to marry a man and he says he doesn't want to marry you under the act, he is indirectly telling you that he wants to reserve the right to have a second wife.
That is true.
You have to ask yourself, would you want your husband to have a second wife? If the answer is absolutely no, then tell him you're not going to marry him unless he marries you under the act.
Yeah.
And this is why I tell our women, don't get pregnant until marriage ceremony is over. Because when you get pregnant, when your fiancé gets you pregnant, he may not have a registry marriage with you. Why would he? He already have you. I mean, he already has you. You're already there with pregnancy. So pregnancy before marriage weakens you and denies you the choice. So please, young girls, young women listening to me, if you meet a man who doesn't want to marry you under the act, it is a red flag. Refuse the marriage. Stop talking to him. Because you know what it means? He's going to get a second wife one day. He will have that right. Even if he doesn't get a second wife, the fact that your husband has the right to get a second wife is going to be a problem for you. If you argue with him, he will threaten you. If you do what he doesn't like, he will tell you he will get a second wife. And you know he's got the right to do so. You'll be weak. And by the way, if your husband has the right to get a second wife, that means he has the right to cheat on you. If you catch him with a girlfriend, he will tell you, well, I can marry her. So, not having your marriage under the act is a very dangerous way to live in modern days. You should understand it. Now, many of you have asked me so many questions about how does a church marriage figure in here compared to a marriage at the registry. Let me explain to you. The church marriage per se, there is really nothing like church marriage. Let's be honest. What the church does is to bless whatever marriage you want to have. If you have only traditional marriage and you go to church,
they blessed you,
and you don't request for registry marriage, the church can give you their certificate and bless your marriage, but that's not marriage under the act.
exactly.
But it's a good thing. Most churches are licensed to celebrate a marriage under the act. I want you to pay close attention now. Most churches are licensed to celebrate marriage under the act. That is why if you look at your marriage certificate, at the bottom right corner of that certificate, you see where the official will sign. In that place the officials will sign, you see minister/registrar. Minister/registrar. Who is the minister? The minister meant there is your priest, your pastor. The registrar is the registrar at the marriage registry. So a licensed church can celebrate a marriage under the Marriage Act. But you gotta be careful that they're doing it. The fact that they give the church license to do so does not mean that the church is going to do exactly that. For the church to celebrate a marriage under the act, the church must fill the appropriate forms. The appropriate forms must be filled and returned to the marriage registry where they have registry of married people. Sometimes some churches don't want to go through the trouble of going to submit forms at the marriage registry. It is tedious for them. They don't want to do that. And even though there is a marriage registry in every local government has its own marriage registry, okay? And the church should go to the marriage registry in the local government where it is to submit the forms, so that the marriage registry is the custodian of the register of married people. So, if your church doesn't do that, or, you know the funny thing that has happened many times, and you got to listen very carefully now, the church will give the form to the husband. After the church has done all these things for you, they will give it to your husband and tell him to return it to the local government. And guess what? He will not return it to the local government. Oh, he may forget. He may be mischievous and destroys it. He may be mischievous and decide not to return it. So now, because he did not return it to the local government, to the registry has no record of your marriage. The registry will not issue you a certificate or certified copy of your marriage certificate. So when you now get into trouble, you'll find out that you did not have a marriage under the act. So you have to be thorough, you have to be meticulous. But my advice to people is this: instead of making this mistake of the church not remembering, or the church filling the wrong form, or not filling the right way, you go to the marriage registry and do it yourself. Of all the various marriages you can have in Nigeria, the cheapest is the marriage registry, and it is the most valid in law. Your traditional marriage is a whole lot of party and a whole lot of money, but when it comes to law, it doesn't stand a very strong ground. It's very expensive. Traditional marriage is expensive. Then you go to the church and have another big party, it's extremely expensive. But you go to the marriage registry with less than 50,000, you will be married the same day. It's not complicated.
Exactly.
And that is the best marriage. So it is an irony that the best form of marriage is the cheapest form of marriage. And yet people don't do that. Because you're carried away by the parties and the showbiz and all those things, the demonstration. You want to prove to all the girls in town that you marry the richest man, the most handsome man, and you dance away your life in your traditional marriage. Fantastic. Lovely. But you must know that if there is a problem in the marriage, your traditional marriage activities will not give you the rights you need. So always do all of them. If you can, I would tell you to do all of them. The traditional marriage is important because that is an opportunity for your family to meet your husband's family and get to know each other and get to know themselves and create some rapport. It is also evidence to announce to everybody that you're no longer a spinster and you're married. So it's also a wonderful party for you to call your friends and celebrate with them and have money splashed on you when you dance. So the traditional marriage is important, but don't confuse it. It could be your undoing if that's all you had. So always make sure that you have registry marriage. And I said the registry marriage can occur through your church if your church is licensed and if the church complies with all the requirements. Or if you are in doubt or not sure and you don't want complications, go straight to the marriage registry and marry the love of your life under the act. When you have marriage under the act, you will have maximum protection of law for a wife and for a husband. I must tell you this, because the marriage act or registered marriage protects husband and wife. Let me tell her what. It protects the weaker party in the marriage. Statutory marriage protects the weaker party. And the weaker party may not always be the woman. I will give you an example. In one of the cases we handled, a woman met a man from America. A married woman met a man from America, fell in love with him, and the man promised her to take her straight to America immediately. But she has to divorce her husband first. The woman called the husband and said, hey, it is over. I'm returning bride price. The marriage is over. The husband said, hell no. We married under the act. Therefore, you are going nowhere. Not in a rush. Let us go to the high court to dissolve the marriage. So you see, the marriage, statutory marriage, protected the man from the sudden shock of being abandoned by his wife. In another case we have, in the marriage, guess what she did? She went to customary law and claimed that they had only customary marriage. And because they had customary marriage, she said she has nothing to give the man. But the man wanted to get a share of the property. Yeah, sorry, we had a brief interruption. So, the man came to us. We looked at the marriage, they had a statutory marriage under the act. We sent a message to the woman and said, Madam, don't go anywhere. This man, you married him under the act. You're going to protect him. He's going to get something from you. You're a rich woman, he's a poor man. You're not going to just go that way. And by the way, that the man has been the one looking after the children. All the time we're going for conferences, traveling, that the man should get custody of the children. Because of that marriage act. So anybody who, it's just that women are usually the weaker party. That is why it looks as if it's only women that are protected by the marriage act. No. Anybody, the weaker party is protected, whether the weaker party is the man or the woman. So please make sure you have that. Okay? Now, another thing I have to explain to you before I go away is this. The notion of court marriage. When people hear the word court marriage, they think that it means that you should go to court and get married in order to have a court marriage. It's not true. No marriage is celebrated in the court. No marriage is celebrated in court. So, court marriage simply means a marriage that can be dissolved only by the high court. A marriage that can be dissolved only by the high court. So, it is called court marriage because we are thinking of how you can dissolve it, not how you celebrate it. The court does not participate in celebrating a marriage. It is when it comes to the end of the marriage that we know whether the court's participation is necessary or otherwise. I'll give you an example. If it is a customary law of marriage, you don't need to go to court to dissolve it. No, you don't need to go to court. You can just return the bride price and that's the end of it. Or if you go to court in the customary marriage, in the traditional marriage, you don't go to the high court, you go to the customary court. And the customary court will interpret the customs, if they can figure out which custom to interpret. Because sometimes there could be confusion. The man is from one village, you are from the other village, and two of you are living in another village. And we say, which custom do we follow? So, but I have told people, even if you are married only traditionally, and you can dissolve the marriage by returning the bride price, please go to customary court anyway and get the marriage.
Thank you.